Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a horror film, The Girl Next Door. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. During the year 2007, an adult man named David just walks out of his workplace and along the busy city streets. He receives a call from his friend, greeting him with a happy birthday. As he is listening to the call, a car suddenly hits an old man passing by. The car drives away as if nothing happened. Without hesitation, David resuscitates the dying old man. But in the end, the old man still dies. That evening, David reflects on the incident earlier. He thinks that if he is given a chance to exchange the situation with the old man, he will take it to numb his own pain. David then reminisces about the tragic incident that took place during his childhood years. The scene then moves back to when David is still a child in his hometown. During that time, the innocent David is in the river catching crayfish and first meets Meg and her younger sister. The curious Meg takes a look at the crayfish. David and Meg immediately become friends. Apparently, she is just new in the town since she formerly lives in the city. It turns out that she and her family have been in an accident recently, which caused the death of her parents and the walking disability of her little sister. Now, she and her sister are living in the care of her auntie, who is just living beside David's home. Auntie has sons, and she freely welcomes her son's friends inside the home, which includes David. The kids spend their time playing in the woods. That night, David finds Meg in the carnival, and he notices that Meg is amazed by the rides. The two then ride the Ferris wheel together. Meg enjoys the ride, since she is rarely able to go to the carnival. But soon after, she needs to go home, as she is told by her auntie to go home early. The next day, auntie is spending time with her sons, David, and their friends. Auntie comments that the carnival is missing a stripper. The children get curious about a stripper, so she teaches them things about strippers. It appears that auntie is teaching the children bad things. The next morning, auntie teaches the children how to properly burn the worm nest in trees. Meg refuses to do it, and auntie comments that she is being squeamish because she is a woman. Auntie then tells Meg to go inside the home and help her sister in doing laundry. That afternoon, Meg borrows money from David so she can buy food. She tells David that she has not eaten anything for 2 days. It turns out her auntie is starving her, so she will not get fat. David buys food for her, and she appears to be so hungry, as she instantly munches on the food. Meg tells David that her auntie hates her. She feels that no matter what she does, her auntie antagonizes her. She shares that she used to paint in the city, but now she cannot paint for fear that her auntie will scold her for it. David motivates her to paint for her aunt, and he says that her auntie will surely love it. She hesitates, so David says that she can paint for him. This makes her happy, and she thanks David for everything. The next morning, Meg hands over her painting to David. His mother sees it, and she comments that Meg is a lovely girl. He takes a look at the painting. It appears that Meg paints him in the river, catching crayfish. That night, David shows the painting to Meg's aunt. She then calls Meg a slut for giving a painting to David. Auntie says Meg is doing something nice to David to get his attention. She then explains a slut to the children. Auntie says that Meg is willing to open her legs for David, so she is a slut. Auntie then warns Meg that if she finds herself being a slut again, she will punish her. Later, David wakes up in his bedroom from the noise in Auntie's house. He takes a peek at the window, and he finds Auntie scolding Meg again. The next day, David visits Auntie's house. He finds Auntie's sons teasing Meg around. One of the sons holds her sensitive body part, so she pushes him away out of anger. After that, she ran away from the room. The sons call Auntie to the scene, and they tell her that Meg had hurt their brother. Auntie asks Meg's sister if she tried to stop Meg from hurting the younger son. Sister says she couldn't, and Auntie calls sister an accomplice of Meg's wrongdoing. So Auntie punishes sister instead by whipping her. Meg finds her disabled sister crying, and she tries to prevent her auntie from whipping her little sister. But the boys stop her from entering the room. After that, Auntie takes the ring from Meg, which belongs to Meg's mother. David cannot take the events anymore. Auntie tells him that it is a domestic dispute and it is nobody's business. Meg soon reports the situation to the policeman, but the policeman did not take the situation seriously, thinking that it was a simple domestic dispute between Auntie and Meg. Later, one of the boys slaps Meg in front of everyone for calling the cops. Auntie then humiliates Meg and tells Meg that the policeman will not take them away from her custody. Auntie worries that Meg might call the cops over again, so she asks Meg what's next. She says she cannot send Meg and her sister away, since there is no other place to take care of them. She then insults Meg before telling her to get back to the room. After that, she sends everyone back home, including David. It seems that David is worried about Meg and her little sister, so he asks his parents if he could spend the night at his aunt's house, and his parents allow him. That night, David enters Auntie's house and finds Meg tied in the basement. It turns out that Auntie and her sons are torturing Meg. They compel Meg to tell a secret, or she will be punished. Then the boys remove the book from her feet, causing her to be hanged. As she suffers from arm pain, the boys suggest stripping her. To prevent her from fighting back, one of them threatens her with a knife. After that, he removes all of her clothes, making her completely naked in front of Auntie and the kids. The sons then force her to confess again, but she insists that there is nothing to confess. After that, Auntie tells her sons to put back the gag on Meg. Auntie whispers to Meg and threatens her that she can hang her sister instead of her. Everyone leaves the basement, while the hanging Meg spends the night in pain. In the middle of the night, David tells the boys that Meg must be suffering in pain. They then check Meg and let her drink water, since she is already dehydrated. She asks them to lower the rope, since it is already too painful to be hanged. The sons tell her that they will lower the rope. In exchange, she must let them touch her body. She refuses the deal, and the boys tell her they will keep her hanging. David interferes, and he lowers the ropes anyway. The next morning, Auntie sets Meg free from the ropes, but she imprisons her in the basement. She warns Meg that she will punish her sister if Meg fights back against her. David goes to his father's work, and he asks his father if it is okay for a boy to hit a woman. His father teaches him that it is never right to hit a woman, although there are exceptions. His father then tells him never to hit a woman. David visits Auntie's house again. He talks to Meg's sister, and he tells her that he cannot do anything to stop Auntie and her sons from hurting the two sisters. That night, David takes a peek at Auntie's basement. He finds Meg tied up, while the sons and their friends are beating her. As they are done beating her, they hang her again. Everyone soon leaves the basement, and David sneaks inside, but Auntie suddenly arrives. The next morning, David visits Auntie's house. He arrives in a familiar scene, as Auntie and the sons are torturing poor Meg again. The sons are inflicting wounds on her body, while Auntie burns her with a cigarette. The cop arrives at the house to check the situation of Meg and her sister. David tells Auntie that he will guard Meg. Auntie then warns David that she will kill them if they scream for help. While Auntie is gone, David says that he will find a way to set Meg free. The cop checks around the house, and Auntie tells the cop that Meg and her sister are busy chopping outside. Apparently, the cop receives a report from their neighbors that Auntie is abusing Meg. Auntie explains that she's just simply giving a small punishment to Meg, and the neighbor is exaggerating the story. The next day, David sneaks into the basement again to check on Meg. He gives Meg a knife so she can use it to escape. He then tells her that he will leave money in the big rock. She can use the money to report to the police if she manages to escape. He then apologizes that he cannot do anything. Meg replies that it's what you do last that counts. After that, he goes to the riverside, where he leaves the money for Meg. The next morning, David visits Auntie's house again. It turns out that Auntie caught Meg trying to escape from the basement. The boys freely let him in the basement. There, he witnesses a gruesome scene as Auntie lets the neighbor's children abuse Meg. Meanwhile, Auntie and the boys are all watching the scene. After that, Auntie scorches Meg, causing the helpless Meg to scream in pain. David tries to help Meg, but the son prevents him from doing so. After torturing Meg, Auntie proceeds to lecture the young neighbor girls in the basement. She tells the young girls that they abuse Meg, so no man will ever want to be with Meg. But she realizes that Meg may still want a man. She then teaches the young neighbor girls that a woman only wants a man to be between her legs. The young girls do not have an idea about her teachings, so she tells the young girls they will eventually understand it. She then says the private but smelly part between the woman's leg is the source of the woman's desire. So she suggests removing Meg's private parts to remove her desires. She says they must burn Meg's private part, and Meg will be perfect. After hearing this, David tries to run away. Auntie's son then runs after him, and they tie him to prevent him from leaving. Auntie continues with her plans, and proceeds to burn Meg's private part. Meg keeps screaming in pain, while David cannot do anything but witness the horrifying scene. The next day, David wakes up from the basement with Meg and her sister. Sister blames herself for the tragic fate of her sister. It turns out that Auntie caught Meg escaping because she tried to get her sister. Sister reveals that Auntie is also touching her private parts. Meg knew about this, so she could not escape the house without her sister. David thinks of a way so he can help the two sisters escape at that moment. He sets the cotton on fire, causing a lot of smoke to come out of the house. He then smashes Auntie when she enters the basement. The son sees David and he beats him badly. The smoke eventually alerts the cop, and the cop finally sees Meg's situation. He then tells David to stay with Meg while he calls for medical help. Meg asks David to give her back her mother's ring. He takes the ring from the unconscious aunt and gives it back to her. Meg asks him if he is truly there to take care of her and her sister, since she feels that David is just a dream. In her dying breath, she confesses that she loves him. She then passes away. The scene then moves back to the year 2007, when David is already an adult. David is taking a look at Meg's painting as he reflects on the past. He thinks that the past can be a gift or a curse. He then declares that he will never forget Meg since she is a gift. However, he is tormented by the feeling of failing somebody. In the end, he keeps Meg's lesson that it's what you do last that counts. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.